Rosa paint is available in emulsion, matte, textured, satin, and glossy. For bookings and distribution rights, kindly call 090-6479-2273 or 070-3317-2866 or visit our corporate office at 142 Upper Mission Extension, Aduawa, Benin City. Rosa paint, supreme quality.
But Wole Soyinka is a gifted man. I have always acknowledged that. But he's a bad politician or political analyst. And I've also said that.
Hello, welcome to another exciting episode of today's news on Nebo TV. My name is Agbaje Onome. Today we're going to be talking about the clash between the popular playwright Wole Soyinka and the President Muhammadu Buhari. Wole Soyinka has said in one of his statements in an interview that he believed that Muhammadu Buhari is not the one in charge of the country. He said he has been studying the President Muhammadu Buhari's regime for some time now, and he believes that President Muhammadu Buhari is not the one in charge of the country. The report has more details.
I said this before. I used the expression rib and winkle, when I made this statement. I don't believe that there's really anybody in charge in Aso Rock. I'm sorry to say this, but I've been studying the trend over the past year and a half, and I believe very much that this president is not in charge of this nation.
Just recently, the popular playwright Professor Wole Soyinka has made a statement as regarding the President Buhari's administration. He said, "I do not really believe there is anybody in charge at Aso Rock." Professor Wole Soyinka, a critic of President Buhari's administration, said this on Thursday, 4th of June 2020 in an interview with Plus TV Africa. He said, "I am sorry to say this, but I have been studying the trend over the past year and a half, and I believe that this president is not in charge of this nation." Professor Soyinka supported President Buhari's election in 2015 but turned against him before the 2019 election after he repeatedly accused President Buhari of poor performance and maladministration. In his recent interview, Professor Soyinka commended Abubakar Umar, a retired army colonel and former military governor of Kaduna State, for his recent open letter to President Buhari criticizing the lopsided appointment made by the president. Thank goodness for the people like Umar. He has the tendency to hit the nail hard and go to the point factually without self-interest. I mean, there's all kinds of letter writers, but Colonel Umar for me is one of the really serious letter writers without self-interest, without self-serving in any way. Professor Soyinka said, lopsidedness in appointment is an insult on entire Nigeria, and that such is also glaring in the Ministry of Petroleum, which is headed by the president himself. "We haven't quite got over yet the data unrest," he said, apparently referring to the lack of infrastructural development in the region which produces Nigeria oil. "I think those who are responsible for this criminal lopsidedness should be punished. It is not sufficient to discuss it and to say restructuring." He said President Buhari, being the minister of the indicted petroleum industry, should have addressed the nation on the issue. "We know the history of this, and we know what it has cost the nation, and we know that it isn't over yet. You say you are launching an inquiry. That's enough. The man is not in charge."
In response to Wole Soyinka's statement on Buhari not being in charge of the country, the former aide to the ex-president Goodluck Ebele Jonathan has urged Wole Soyinka to apologize for his statement for saying that Buhari is not in charge of the country.
Reno Omokiri, a former aide to ex-president Goodluck Jonathan, has urged the popular playwright Wole Soyinka to apologize for saying President Muhammadu Buhari was not in charge of Nigeria. Wole Soyinka stated this during an interview on Plus TV Africa on Thursday, 4th of June 2020. Wole Soyinka said, "I have said this before. I do not believe there is really anybody in charge in Aso Rock. I have been studying the trend over the past year and a half, and I believe the president is not in charge of this nation in so many aspects and directions." Reacting to this, Omokri, in a tweet on his official Twitter page on Friday, 5th of June 2020, said Soyinka should not complain about President Buhari, adding that he should honorably apologize and live out the rest of his years preserving his legacy. He should accept responsibility for bringing the worst ruler in Nigeria's history of power. He should thereafter apologize.
Recently, during the outbreak of coronavirus pandemic, Wole Soyinka also attacked the President Muhammadu Buhari for ordering total lockdown in Abuja, Lagos and Ogun State.
The clash between the popular playwright Wole Soyinka and the President Muhammadu Buhari seemed to have increased during the coronavirus pandemic as a result of the attack of Professor Wole Soyinka towards Muhammadu Buhari for ordering a total lockdown in Abuja, Lagos and Ogun State. Wole Soyinka said that Buhari had no constitutional backing to make the declaration and called on state governors not to allow the usurpation of their powers. In a statement he signed and made available to reporters in reaction to the president's nationwide broadcast, Wole Soyinka said that the State House of Assembly should determine whether the president acted under the law. The playwright also called on constitutional lawyers and elected representatives to step into the matter and educate Nigerians on the powers of the president. He further said that a president who has been conspicuously sick is now alleged to have woken up after a prolonged siesta and begun to issue orders. He urged governors and legislators to be especially watchful. No pandemic is ever cured with constitutional piracy. It only lays down new political virus for the future.
A response came from the presidency to counter Wole Soyinka's attack on the total lockdown. The counter statement was made by the presidential spokesman Garba Shehu, saying that Wole Soyinka is not a medical professor. The report has more details. And just recently, the popular playwright Wole Soyinka has said in one of his statements
in response to the comment made by Professor Wole Soyinka over the declaration of the total lockdown in Lagos and Ogun State by the President Muhammadu Buhari, the presidency, in a statement issued by presidential spokesman Garba Shehu, lambasted Soyinka over his comment. He said that Professor Soyinka is not a medical professor. His qualifications are in English literature and his prizes are for writing books and plays for theater. He is of course entitled to his opinions, but that is exactly all they are. Semantics and not science. They cannot and should not therefore be judged as professional expertise in the matter in any shape or form. Across the world, from parts of the United States and China to countries including the United Kingdom and France, government-mandated lockdowns are in place to slow and defeat the spread of coronavirus. All have been declared and all have been made necessary based on medical and scientific evidence. The guidance of the Nigerian government medical specialists is to advise the same. Professor Wole Soyinka has also declared, doubtless based on his specialism as a playwright, that we are not in war emergency, Shehu said. He continued by saying, as for the legality of the lockdown, the government of Nigeria's primary duty in law and action is the defense of the people of Nigeria. We face a global pandemic. Nigeria is now affected. The scientific and medical guidance the world over is clear. The way to defeat the virus is to halt its spread through limitations of movement of people. He further said that perhaps Wole Soyinka may write a play on the coronavirus pandemic after the emergency is over. In the meantime, we ask the people of Nigeria to trust the word of our doctors and scientists and not fiction writers at this time of national crisis.
Judging from a statement he made during one of the BBC program, he said that the President Muhammadu Buhari behaved just like the former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan in handling the issue of herdsmen ravaging Nigerian communities. The report has more details.
Wole Soyinka, commenting on the 2019 presidential elections during one of the BBC program in April 2019, he said that the 2019 election is one of the most depressing elections we have been through. Talking for himself, it wasn't possible for him to make a choice for the simple reason that both candidates, President Muhammadu Buhari and Atiku Abubakar, had histories, one immediate and one past, which made one look for alternative. He also said that President Muhammadu Buhari didn't really win the first election in 2015. He won by default as it was impossible to continue with Jonathan. Wole Soyinka further said that as it happened, yes, he did use the expression born again Democrat. He explained by saying when somebody competes in an election 3-4 times and persists, he must believe in democracy. The circumstances in Nigeria, the fact that Nigerians have shown the military what a huge failure they were, makes it possible for one to identify the possibility of exceptions when they seem to behave like Democrats. When he was asked on Buhari's progress on Boko Haram, he said that certainly Buhari has made progress, but another menace, speaking of the Fulani herdsmen and farmers' clash, came up and Buhari made the same mistake of slow response. Buhari has failed in the respect because he did not act. He behaved just like Jonathan in the past. He said he was very apathetic.
Wole Soyinka said that the President Muhammadu Buhari's regime should stop Muslim people's freedom of expression in the country, accusing him and the national security agents for not listening to the people's voice in the society.
Wole Soyinka, one of the Nigerian most popular playwrights, has warned the President Muhammadu Buhari's regime to stop Muslim freedom of expression in the country, accusing him and the nation's security agents of refusing to listen to people. Soyinka stated this while speaking at his birthday event in Lagos. He said, "One of the beauties of existence is the ability to express oneself. It is a fundamental human right which we cannot compromise, and it is important to send a strong message to this government and to the security services to stop trying to muzzle people when they come together to exchange ideas." He also commended the clampdown on protesters in Lagos. Soyinka said that the government are reducing them as human beings, and so also they are reducing themselves as human beings because it means that they are afraid to listen. He also said that those who are afraid to listen usually are guilty people, and that is why they do not want to listen. The reduction of the freedom of any one of us, however small, however minor, the reduction of the right to expression of any one of us is an infringement and assault on the rights of all of us, whether we are part of that particular exercise or not.
On December 2019, Wole Soyinka also slammed the National Security Agency for the violent rearrest of the Nigerian activist Omoyele Sowore and accused the government of Muhammadu Buhari for violating the rights of the citizens.
The clash between the popular playwright Wole Soyinka and the President Muhammadu Buhari's regime also showed forth during the violent rearrest of journalist and activist Omoyele Sowore on Friday, December 6, 2019. It came less than 24 hours after Sowore and his co-accused Olawale Bakare were freed after 125 days in detention, during which 2 courts had granted them bail. Government agents stormed the Federal High Court in Abuja, manhandled the journalist in full glare of the world media. The popular playwright Wole Soyinka slammed agents of the Department for State Security. He called on all civil society and organizations in Nigeria to unite and give a coordinated response against the government of President Muhammadu Buhari for violating the rights of citizens.
Nebo TV is available for sponsorship. Advertise your business, organization, and products on Nebo TV. Contact our representative in Canada and Nigeria with the phone numbers and email address on the screen.